Hey, what's up, family? This is Jiles, your host of Urban Arts Live, brought to you by Urban Arts Magazine. Yo, welcome to another episode of Urban Arts Live. We are super excited to have our guest with us today. He's a lawyer, he's an advocate, he is a disruptor. I think in this time is perfect. He's also the co-founder of this hot nonprofit called Social Change. I want to welcome my boy, Todd Belcore.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Todd, how are you, man?
Hello to you and your listeners. I'm well, man. It's an honor to have the opportunity to share some thoughts with you and your listeners today. Thank you for having me on.
For sure, man. So like you are you're a Renaissance man, and we don't see that often anymore. So what law school did you go to?
I went to Northwestern Law School down the street in Chicago, where our headquarters is, and we focus on everything at Social Change, from fighting for policy advocacy to doing direct action, responding to people's immediate needs for food and legal assistance, and using storytelling as a means to help people around the world understand the struggles of others through film, art, and other mediums.
Nice, man. We're gonna come back to that, but I want to know, so there are a lot of people who went to law school and they took the corporate route, and they took the route that you see on TV. What made you want to fight for social justice and social change in the trenches?
Yeah, I mean, when I found Social Change, I found there's a true vacuum in terms of organizations that are fighting for the people, from the people, for the people. Having my own background, knowing what it's like to deal with injustice, discrimination, hardship, poverty, and otherwise. My mother being a single mother of four, I knew hardship firsthand. I knew exactly how difficult it was to overcome all these different hurdles that we have in life. But I had her fighting on my behalf. So to me, it made sense to honor what she's done for us and our family, to make sure I put myself in a position to fight for others by going to law school, being an advocate, standing in the gap. And that's also why we went one step further by founding Social Change, because we are working in the context of other organizations and other nonprofits. But at the end of the day, no one knows what we need better than us. So why not start our own thing and make sure we're advocating for everything the right way?
Yeah, that's dope, man. That's amazing. So what's your elevator pitch? What's your 30-second pitch when someone asks you what is social change?
Well, I often ask people if they had to name the one organization that they know that's committed to Black liberation in terms of changing policy, what would they name? Yeah. And oftentimes there's none they can think of. Yeah. And that sort of a complete ridiculous lack of answer is the reason why we formed Social Change in the first place.
Yeah, so you brought up the storytelling a couple of times, and so I'm an artist. It's right there. No, it's right here. So it intrigues me. So talk to me a little bit about that storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling is an important component, because there's no shorter path between two people than a story. There's no more effective means or tool to open up people's eyes, minds, and hearts. So we recognize the importance of storytelling. In 2012, we started International Social Change Film Festival with the express purpose of creating a vehicle to help people who don't understand the experience of others, but giving them an opportunity to kind of walk in someone else's shoes, see and feel that struggle for themselves, and be in a better position to be not just educated and informed about what other people are going through, but hopefully then inspired to get involved in the movements to do something about them. So that's why we have the International Social Change Film Festival. It's called Change Fest for short. We're going into our 9th year of it, and it's coming up right around the corner on September 26th.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, you have it coming up. I saw a flyer for it. Yo, so if it's in Chicago, correct?
Normally it's in Chicago, New York, and LA. So it's a 3-city experience that's pretty dope, that takes over a whole weekend in different venues across the world. Okay. But because of COVID, we're trying to make sure we're putting everyone in position to do the things we're recommending that folks do. And that means not congregating big groups and not spending a lot of time putting themselves at risk of exposure. So we're actually bringing the festival to everyone's living room. If you have internet, you have the opportunity to participate in the film festival and watch some films, be part of some of the dope discussions, and build some of the community that we do only and uniquely through that setting.
That's awesome. So next year, 2021, we're going to add Dallas to that list, okay?
Okay, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so
actually, one of the films is called Sand Branch.
Yeah. It's literally right down the street from where I am right now. Yeah.
Right. So it's an interesting depiction of how in many ways we have this grandiose version of how we view America, and how kind of the least of these in America is something that even still has basic necessities. But there are communities that don't even have electricity and working water and all those things that are existing right now within the borders of the United States. So that's an important film to help people see how near and dear and significant poverty is in our nation,
Right.
and how completely overlooked it is by so many.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've already committed the Urban Arts Center to be, the fourth venue here in Dallas. We're the third cultural coast, as people call it. So you'll hit all four corners of the country next year.
I love that, man. Appreciate it. That sounds really dope.
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited already. So with the film festival, how many films do you have that'll be screened?
We've got over 100 films, man. To be honest with you, yeah, we received thousands of hours of submissions, and understanding this is a time where people need to understand what people are going through more than ever. We took it upon ourselves to make sure that we showcase stories that really cover the wide spectrum of some of the issues that people are dealing with. Everything from issue of denial of access to vote, to addiction, to criminal justice issues, to police brutality, accountability, developing countries, mental health, disability rights, LGBTQIA, issues of women being disrespected in multiple settings. So we just done everything we could to make sure that if there's an issue that was important to our current society, that we provided a venue for activists, organizations, filmmakers, storytellers to have a venue and a platform through Change Fest to tell stories necessary, to mobilize people as necessary to do something about them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's the website for the film festival?
Socialchange.site. That's our website, but it also gives you all the links to everything you need to really dive into the festival head first. Socialchange.site, like website.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can find us on all the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, social medias at CHI, like CHI, Social Change, NYC Social Change, SAC Social Change. We've got LA Social Change. We've got locations across the nation now, and we want to make sure that whatever is the most convenient place for you to tap into the network to get involved, we want to make sure we have a hub there for you. But more importantly, if there's ever a time to be involved in what's going on around the nation to make things better, it's now. And we encourage you to do that through Social Change.
Awesome. So just to pick your brain for a second, so the Breonna Taylor saga, that's what it is at this point. What is your take on the Breonna Taylor issue? Do you think that the police need to be arrested? Where do you stand on that?
Well, and it's interesting. Just take a step back. I mean, people say, well, what about this type of crime? What about this type of crime in terms of certain communities? And people are so excited to make sure we talk about every other kind of crime besides police crime. And I think at the end of the day, if police are committing crimes, they should be held accountable like everyone else.
Okay.
If the president's committing crimes, they should be held accountable like anyone else. And we have a society where people make excuses and go above and beyond and do everything they can to do, like, mental gymnastics to make excuses for certain populations of people. And certainly the police officers in the Breonna Taylor case should be arrested and brought to justice.
Okay. Awesome. So are you an advocate for police reform at this point?
Yeah, amongst the things that we have a really robust policy agenda. I mentioned how important it is to have an organization committed to liberation that actually has a policy agenda and fights for it. We've advocated successfully to pass and create 23 pieces of legislation nationwide, relating to everything from police reform to prison reform to access to jobs, access to housing, opportunities to help people get further education, own businesses, get occupational licenses, and different things that we need in our communities to really be in a position to take care of ourselves and our families, things that we've been denied for too long. We fight and advocate to make sure we change the laws so they reflect the justice necessary so people can get the opportunities they deserve. So yes, I mean, certainly police accountability is one of our major platforms. And you can see all of our platforms are transparently listed out at socialchange.site. And we've got about 12 things that relate to 12, so to speak, that all reflect different things that need to be done to ensure that we have a police department that we can all trust and have faith in.
Right. And so these resources, are they only available in Chicago or are they available nationwide?
No, nationwide. So we've got a significant policy agenda in California right now. We've done some consulting and assisting in Florida, even in your home state of Texas. And we have a hub in New York. We've done some work, passed some laws in Missouri. So whether it's supermajority Republican, supermajority Democrat, it doesn't matter. We plead and we make sure we touch on people's common humanity and the importance of getting to the issues that affect people, families, individuals, not necessarily just races or economic brackets or political parties. And we've had great success doing that.
Okay, awesome. So speaking of successes, what's one of your like most memorable success stories with social change?
Yeah, so we've had significant bail reform in Illinois to make sure that people aren't being thrown in prison and in jail and forced to remain there just because they're unable to pay to get out. There's a big issue where people are getting their licenses taken from them. They're basically criminalizing poverty by making it so if people don't pay your parking tickets, you're losing your license, and then they're being thrown in jail, impacting that. We provided content control tablets to people in prison so they can continue to develop themselves and improve their ability to not just be, rehabilitate, become job ready upon release. Ban the box is something we're probably known for the most, which there's for people who aren't familiar, there's an application process generally where you have a checkbox asking whether you've been convicted of a crime or not. If you check the answer yes, generally that means your application is thrown in the garbage. But we've changed the law to ensure that consideration is moved further into the application process, so people can have their qualifications considered. They can have a true opportunity to get employment. We find that to be a game changer. We've increased access to the number of educational loans people can get for in secondary school. So when people are in college, they have an opportunity to go ahead and get more MAP grants and more funding from the government. And that's just a smattering. I mean, more housing opportunities, more opportunities to own businesses. We stand by what we fight for, and we mean it, and we make sure we get things done that we can all be proud of, so more people can really have a chance to do the things they're meant to do.
Wow. So literally, like, change is your agent. like that's what you're affecting in the communities that you touch. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, changes is something we just talk about. I mean, we think protesting is important, but if you have protests that have accompanied policy reforms, and you don't have the focus to ensure those policy reforms become law, then then you have to protest in perpetuity.
Right.
And we already have generations of our ancestors who've been protesting, and because of their protests, doors are open. So let's make sure when we protest in our situation, in our time, that we also do more to open doors and make sure that policies change to reflect justice and give us some of the outcomes that we know we need and deserve.
Wow. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I've been saying that since the George Floyd murder, is that protesting is great. It brings about awareness, but who's affecting actually policy change, and who's making those legislations, who's in those closed door meetings having, like, if you're just protesting, that's going to bring awareness. It's great. But like you said, someone has to be doing the work behind the scenes. And that's amazing that you guys do that. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm glad to know that your organization exists, because I was asking who was beating the drum, because you don't see anyone. I know, like, during the '60s we had Dr. King and his whole party, his whole movement, but I didn't know anyone who was beating this drum. And so now, if anyone asks, it's going to be social change is doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things you hit on is important to highlight. I think at the end of the day, we have a lot of people who want to be Dr. King, but they don't want to be Bayard Rustin. They want to be Malcolm X, but they don't want to be, Bob Moses. The people who are kind of less known behind the scenes. Bayard Rustin was the architect of the war on poverty, by the way. He created all the legislative changes responsible for a lot of things we enjoy today in terms of our civil rights. And Bob Moses, one of the preeminent organizers of the ground of a multiracial, multi-generational movement and coalition to help people secure voting rights and make sure there's a real targeted effort to highlight the injustices taking place and training people to overcome the hardships associated with protesting, especially now. I mean, when you're protesting violence and still being subjected to violence, it shows you how entrenched the violence is. So even when the police know the world is watching, they still can't help but inflict that sort of damage on people. And I think it's it's emblematic of how much change is necessary, but also why it's important to have conversations like these and to build on them with meaningful policy reform at socialchange.site.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I 100% agree. So question for you. What's next? What's next for social change? What's on the horizon?
Well, it looks like we're going to Dallas, and I'm looking forward to that. Moving to Dallas. No, so we have meaningful partners across the world, and we're going to continue to expand to kind of increase the strength of our hubs to mobilize. Because our goal is to not just partner and because we have a lot of events right now responding to immediate needs. We're giving people clothing who need clothing, food, PPE, whatever there may be in terms of emerging needs of particular communities. But the goal of that in our film festival is all unapologetically to get people to get a little more involved in addressing the root causes responsible for those needs being triggered in the first place. So while we're out feeding the homeless, what are we doing to stop homelessness in the first place? What are we doing to stop the joblessness, the forcible evictions that are forcing people to be outside their homes? What are we doing to address mental health as an overarching systemic issue? And so these are different ways in which we just engage in not just kind of the frontline work in responding to immediate needs, but kind of our recruiting work to get more soldiers for change to help us in the effort to create the rainbow coalitions necessary to really do something meaningful about the root causes responsible for a lot of the oppression and injustices that people face. So our larger scale goals are to continue growing more hubs, more robust hubs in major city centers, major rural centers, to make sure everyone knows you've got an advocate, you've got some expertise, you've got people who've got your back. That's, of course, nonpartisan, of course, apolitical, and regardless of your color, class, or creed, we're fighting for justice, we're fighting for opportunity, and we're here for you.
Question: with the social work that you're doing and like the community work you're doing, how do you maintain a apolitical position?
Yeah, well, we just unfortunately and fortunately, so we even create, unapologetically platforms for justice. What a candidate that stands for justice should be fighting for.
Okay.
And we ask, regardless of you're independent, libertarian, Republican, Democrat, these are things that the community needs to have a better opportunity to fulfill their potential and have an opportunity to get more of our human capital really leverage and access, and so we can do better as a community, as a state, as a country. And so those things are inherently, those are ideas, and ideas are not, inherently attributed to a party or a political ideology per se. So that makes it easy for us to just say, hey, regardless who you are or what you're fighting for, whether it be governor or city council, these are different things that we need to have done. And whoever's in office, we try to make sure that we work with the stakeholders, the business community, the legislators, and the community members, and state's attorneys, law enforcement, whoever else is impacted, realtors, retailers, stores, whatever, to change the laws so we get some meaningful progress.
I love it. And I know we find a lot of those who are on the front lines to be very one-sided politically. So it's just very interesting that you guys that is your policy and your fight to stay apolitical and ensure that all sides are brought to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, I mean, one of the bigger crises we have in this country is one of division. And unless you actually act to really create that safe space where people can have disagreements and where people can have, different ideologies, understandings, and expectations about what they want personally, and say, hey, we all have different. If we only work with people we only agree with, I'd have to work with myself and myself alone, because everyone has different beliefs and nuances. So you have to broaden that to make sure your focuses are more in keeping with what's promised by, the Pledge of Allegiance, liberty and justice for all. If we can start there and build out, then we'll be in a position where we all can have a better opportunity to do what we're meant to do.
Awesome, man. I love it. So, family, go check out the film festival, the Change Fest, right?
Yeah, Change Fest. That's right. Socialchange.site. You got to check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great speakers, world premieres. We've got folks talking about every issue that matters to everyone. You can't
Yeah.
miss it. And we're going to need folks there to not just be a part and listen and watch, but also to lend your voice and be part of the
Right.
conversation and share your
Right.
stories and your best practices and what other people should be doing. And also making sure that, everyone is being heard from in a really real way.
That's dope. I really appreciate it. What we're going to do is we're going to play a quick game. We're going to play what's called over and under. So I'm going to give you some words, and you let me know if you think they're overrated or underrated. All right.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Cool. Summer.
Underrated. Underrated. I mean, I'm from Chicago, so I mean, the summer we live for it, and even if we still maximize with festivals and being out as often as possible, it still never seems like quite enough.
Nah, of course not, man. International travel.
Ooh, super underrated. Super underrated. Nothing opens your eyes more. It helps you better understand your place in the world and the magnitude of all the different things people are dealing with and all the different ways people derive joy and really triumph over different things. It's a beautiful experience that I wish everyone, truly like youth and everyone, had a chance to really experience and help you really redefine what it is to be a global citizen.
Gotcha. Sports.
Ooh. I feel like I've got to say at least one is overrated. I think I feel like sports may be an example.
Okay.
But the only reason I flinched on that because you also have the immense platform that sports represents.
Yeah.
So one of our dreams is for every time you see MLB or NFL saying, we're going to do something to show we value Black lives, we would love for them to actually hire us to make sure they do that, That's right. So it is an amazing platform. But as you saw with coronavirus over the last 6 months, I mean, you didn't have sports for 6 months, and the world still rotated around the access. People still need to put food on the table, and there's still so many needs. So it's an important stress relief, but it's not as important as people make it out to be, where people live and die by it.
Got it. So it'll be a tough one right here. Protesting.
I think it's underrated. I think more people are engaging in it. I think the problem is the media coverage is making it seem far more diabolical and nefarious than it is when, 95% of protests are 100% peaceful. I think at the end of the day, I mean, it is the preeminent way that we stand out. And this is why you mentioned how important it is to travel globally. We have people submit films to our festival who aren't even allowed to promote the festival or promote their films because of the way in which the government oppresses them and prevents them from having that freedom of speech. Yeah. So I think it's the opportunity to be able to celebrate that constitutional opportunity to kind of speak your mind and stand up and speak out. I don't think you can really say enough about that. What we would wish would happen more is if we were able to attach and coordinate more of those things and make sure we're kind of building blocks for a meaningful and sustainable movement for change that yields hard policy reform.
Right. Awesome. Last one. Social change.
Super underrated. Golly, we're underrated. I mean, we should be a household name. I mean, of course, we have not been around as long as the NAACP or National Urban League or anything like that. But we are the super dope version. We're slim, trim, right. We're slim, trim, and agile. We get an incredible amount of work, and we make a crazy amount of impact. I mean, the fact that I can ask people a question, like if I ask you to name the organization committed to Black liberation and policy advocacy, and you can't name one, I mean, that shows you how needed we are and how people need to know about us. When people make donations to all these different organizations for their birthdays or for whatever movements, or Michael Jordan was to throw $1 million or something, I'm like, we in your city, fam. Right. Give us that mill, and we'll show you how much we could change. I mean, we could change things in North Carolina, his home state, everything. Because at the end of the day, the nuts and bolts are getting things done. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to be a professor at law schools, all the things I've had the privilege of doing or being involved in. You just need a little bit of training, some nuts and bolts stuff like Bob Moses was teaching, regardless what your background is, and you can get some real things done. So we would love to have more of the opportunities to kind of spread the work in our effective toolkit for change around the world. But we just need the support, the exposure, and the opportunity to get before more people so they can see all the crazy, amazing things we've done with very little. So I appreciate you for giving us the opportunity, brother, to share a little bit about our work. But social change is definitely underrated. I mean, that's why we have social change.site versus socialchange.org, because socialchange.org was $75,000 to buy.
Wow.
And that's an irresponsible investment. So, socialchange.site is what we have, and we're, mean, green, and ready to fight.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. I'm going to push it as much as I can, for sure. Yeah. So next game is called This or That. So I'm going to give you, just pick this or that. First thing off your mind, no explanation, just rapid fire.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. It's going to be a little different. Chocolate or
I heard chocolate, but I didn't hear the second one.
chocolate or vanilla?
Oh, chocolate.
Spring, fall?
Fall.
Plane or drive?
Oh, drive. Road tripping.
Music or dance?
Ooh, you can't have one without the other, family. That's a rough one. I would say
Pick one.
I actually like to dance, believe it or not. So dance.
Okay. Chicago. Texas. Whatever it is.
Over everything. Whatever you're about to say outside of heaven, I'd like run that Chicago.
Period. Gotcha. Protesting legislation.
Legislation.
Okay. In the trenches, behind the closed doors.
Behind the doors.
Gotcha. Cool. Man, that was easy. Yeah. So, if you are not following Social Change, follow them on all the social medias. They'll be right above me. Where you can click on it and you can definitely follow Social Change. Follow the movement. Join. If there's a membership fee, if there are any donations, can they donate?
Absolutely. Socialchange.site/donate. But we also do encourage people to join us. There's a couple ways. You volunteer 10 hours a month, or donate the equivalent of 10 hours a month of your whatever your salary, your wage, whatever, to help us really fuel the movement, to make sure we can do everything we need to do to fight for others.
Support. You heard all the community work they're doing, so definitely support. Man, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been eye-opening to me. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm super stoked about this film festival for sure. And
yes. September 26th. Appreciate you coming to Dallas next year. Thank you, guys.
2021. This has been another episode of Urban Arts Live with Todd Belcore, co-founder of Social Change. Join us next week. We'll be right back.